year-old narrative at this point.
My point is, but he has, during his tenure, he has been to Chicago.
But it's not about Attorney General. It's not about the Attorney General. It's about the role the federal government is going to play in these matters, number one. And number two, I think there's also some concern about the atmospherics around the Trayvon Martin case and this case in terms of the White House. The president's response yesterday was very clinical. It was very impersonal in many respects. He didn't talk about Michael Brown as, that could be my son. And so there are all these other dynamics that, to your point, Professor, really speaks to how Eric Holder handles this going into Ferguson tomorrow, because it's not just his presence there, but it's also the vibe that the community, the larger community, gets about how serious the president is about getting something done.
But here's the deal, Lauren. I think using Michael's comparison to Trayvon Martin in this case, the reason I think that this is also different is that, first of all, in the Trayvon Martin case, the FBI was looking at that issue. In this case, they literally are conducting their own independent investigation.
Right.
Also, the federal government did not do its own autopsy in the Trayvon Martin case.
Right.
And so they have far more involvement in this case than they did in the Trayvon Martin case.
I was going to say real quick, if I could, the real difference is that this involves the killing by a cop as opposed to an individual. So I think that elevates the level of scrutiny.
And it should elevate the policy.
But also the screw-ups of the Ferguson Police Department in St. Louis County.
Exactly. You almost had to come in because of the screw-ups of the police department. But also there has to be a wider discussion about policing in this country at a time when we're at a generational low in crime. So if the president and the attorney general really want to get real, they'll talk about stop and frisk. They'll talk about why it is in this country that police keep having increased interactions with people who are not breaking the law or who are doing a petty crime, which we saw in the Eric Garner case, where somebody's dead because they were selling loose cigarettes.
And of course,
so, is that federal policy? Not all of that is federal policy, but the president can use the bully pulpit to discuss that, and has chosen not to. When the New York City Police Department stops, 600,000 people a year, he didn't address that. Now we have this situation.
Michael, I talked to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. early in the radio show. One of the things that he said is the people of Ferguson have the power right now to transform their city. 67% black. Last year there was a city election. 1,500 folks voted. You got people who are clamoring about a jury. Guess what? If you're not registered to vote, you can't even potentially be on the jury. And so he said they have the ability to elect a whole new city council, school board, you name it. He said, so while folks out there demonstrating, he said Rainbow Push is trying to go door to door saying, look, you got to get registered, you got to vote, the power is sitting in your hands. He said, I get marching and protesting. He said, but marching and protesting and you ain't voting? He said, it's ridiculous.
They got to do that right now, not later, right now.
There's no question. It's a slap in the face to our ancestors, who fought and died for that right to vote. So all folks need to participate in the democratic process, no question about that. But that does not, of course, absolve others from responsibility
absolutely
in this problem.
But I think...
But you've got to take control of your community.
Well, take control of your community, but also... But here's the other thing, and again, I hear people talking about provocateurs and other people who are out there, a handful of people at night. This is when you need to have 100 or 200 or 300 people who are there at night saying, y'all are not going to turn this thing into this huge fight with all the cameras here.
Well, last night they did have people in the community who were pointing out to the cops who to arrest. People, anarchists from other places, stuff like that. And that there was a joint effort for that, which was a really good thing. Frankly, I think they should keep protesting, though, because that's how you keep how you keep pressure on power.
My point is, I agree with the protest.
Right.
But if you have individuals who are choosing to throw rocks, who are choosing to throw bottles, who are choosing to taunt, then all of a sudden what you're doing is you are elevating a situation, and it makes it hard for somebody to make the argument you're peacefully protesting when some folks are not being peaceful.
Well, what they have to do is link the protest to actual political activity, which you don't see happening.
And a game plan.
Right, an actual strategy and actual plan. But I do think the protest keeps pressure on power, keeps this in the news, keeps the international media watching this, etc.
I agree.
But you would think at this point, to our earlier discussion, that the mayor and others would be drawn into this conversation by now. Amazing. So all of that protesting and all of that has not motivated or moved that political leadership. The question is, what will?